I guess I'm doing YouTube now. So, a lot of people keep telling me that I should, so peer pressure works, is the moral of the story here. Anyway, so I've kind of already started on what I'm doing here because I decided to make this video about halfway through the process, maybe a little less than halfway, but you know what I mean. So I'm gonna do my best to kind of catch you up on where I'm at now, and then we'll go from there. And it'll probably be a turn wreck, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so anyway, what you're gonna want to do to just start out here, more or less, is you're gonna want to get like a wire of some sort. Coat hanger will work. However, I used craft wire, which I don't have any more of, because I used it all when I was doing this the first time, and I was too stupid to record it. And some aluminum foil. I'm gonna get some aluminum foil. Heavy duty works, so you can see, but it doesn't have to be heavy duty. And brand doesn't matter either. Great Value works. It could be Reynolds. Doesn't have to be. Pretend that this is your wire, and you've bent it into a vaguely tongue shape, right? You know, like that. You're gonna want to make it smaller than the end product. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take your tin foil, take your wire, and you're gonna wrap that bad boy up like this, right? And you're gonna keep layering it. What you're gonna do, what you're gonna want to do next, it's early. It's 7:45. It's early. What you're gonna want to do next is you're gonna want to take clay. I prefer oil-based. I'd suggest oil-based because it doesn't dry out. But I'm not a professional, so my suggestion really means check.
Heck.
And you can do whatever
Heck.
you want. But you want it to be slightly smaller than your final product, and you're going to get your clay. You're going to sculpt around the foil, and you're going to want to attach that to some sort of base. The first time I did it, I took a styrofoam plate and I just stuck it on there with some glue and sculpted on it. Second time, I made a little wire loop. I stuck that through a solo cup, and my thought was, hey, when I cast this, I'll be able to pull it out by the loop. Didn't work at all, and it's still half stuck in there, and I'm waiting for needle nose pliers to come in, so obviously that wasn't a very good idea, so don't do it. Anyway, clay, you're gonna sculpt it. I'm not doing that again because I'm not wasting the resources. I'm in college and I don't have the money to do that, so I'm just gonna insert a picture of that now. Okay, now after you've sculpted your tongue and you got your base, you're gonna wanna find some kind of tube that will fit your tongue, right? And so what you're gonna do is you're gonna get that tube and you're gonna set it up so you can put your tongue at the very top, right? And you're gonna take plaster. Now, again, I'm gonna suggest that you use Ultracal or Hydrocal because that's what special effects artists use, and that's the best for casting stuff like this in high detail, but you know, that's just a suggestion, and again, I'm not a professional, so you don't have to listen to me. It's more of a guideline than a rule, so use whatever plaster you want. But you have my suggestion. You're gonna pour that in there, and you're gonna take your tongue, this is the tongue, and you're gonna take it, and you're gonna put it in. And so what you're gonna do is you're gonna let that harden, and then you're gonna demold it. And if you don't suck,
Heck.
you're not gonna have to deal with this. A lot of stuff there in the bottom that you cannot reach because the tongue is too long and that's really stuck down in there. So once I get those pliers in, we'll have an adventure trying to get those out. Hell yeah, got my boy. What are you doing? Don't judge me for not being able to talk. The fumes are already getting to my head. You need naphtha. Haha. You need to clean it out. You need to get a toothbrush. You're just gonna brush it like your teeth. If your teeth was a big hollow tongue. Alright, so what I did to clean out the lower portion is I got these long tweezers and I just wrapped a cotton ball around the end and taped it on. And I'm just swabbing out the inside. Just trying to get all that clay out of there, all the gelatin that I shouldn't have put in there out. So just clean it as best you can. And then we're gonna wanna seal it with some super sealing agent. And my recommendation of Ultracal earlier, not the best. It's actually extremely porous, so if I had used probably Hydrocal or anything else that isn't as porous as Ultracal, I wouldn't have to seal it. So just let that be known. Okay, at this point I feel like I've gotten it pretty well cleaned out, so I'm just gonna pour a little more in there. I'm just gonna swirl it around in there. And then just dump it out. Make sure I got every little bit left in there washed out. Wait for it to dry really good, and then we're gonna seal it. Alright, so what I have here is basically an estimate of the length and shape of what's inside of this mold. And so what I did is I took a piece of thread with a needle on the end or anything to weigh it down. You just hang it in there and you mark where it ends and then you measure it out. Mine ended up being 11.5 inches. And then I measured the width, which ended up being 2 3/8 inches. And then I took a pencil and I marked the edges with graphite. And I pressed it against the paper and then I traced that out in pen. And so then what I did there after I did the graphite was I drew an oval that would fit in there, marked the cross sections, marked where I wanted to put all the holes for the wires and the middle. And I'll come back to that later. And then I segmented it off every inch for where all the vertebrae are going to go. So after marking all that up, I took some Instamorph plastic and I heated that up. And what I took was enough fishing wire to fit the length about 3 times, just to be safe and make sure I didn't run out of length. And so what I did was I tied it at the end and then I molded the plastic around it for the tip of the tongue. And so this actually fits perfectly down into the end. And so now what I'm waiting for is I need to go get enough coffee straws to run the length of the tongue 3 times to make passageways for all the wires. So I gotta wait for my first day of work to grab those, because they don't have any at the Starbucks near my place. So the next piece of our puzzle here is gonna look like this when you're done, with wires coming out of these tubes and the vertebrae lining up down the length of the tongue. and I'm going to show you how to make that right now. Some Instamorph plastic. You can just get this online. I think they sell it on Amazon. It's not too expensive. An X-Acto knife and a pair of scissors. Cocktail straws. An object with a diameter similar to that of the cocktail straws. Some fishing wire. And a lighter. So you're going to want to take your lighter and your cocktail stirrers. You're just going to want to melt down the ends. And then you're just going to want to stick the ends together. So what I suggest you do next is take nail clippers or your X-Acto knife and just cut down that seam as close as you can get it to the edge. Next thing you're going to want to do is boil some water. You might want to get some hummus while you wait for that. And you're going to want to take some of your Instamorph and just pop it in and wait till it turns clear. So now that your Instamorph is softened, what you're going to want to do is grab a piece of fishing wire, about 5 times the length of this, and you're going to need 3 of them. So you're going to get your Instamorph. Make sure you get some of the water out there because it is boiling. You're going to take your piece of fishing wire and you're going to kind of try and hook it in there so that it's not just going to slide right out. Like so. You want to do that with all 3 pieces. And then you just want to kind of mold your plastic into a kind of tongue tip shape that'll fit down into the very end of your mold. So you're going to want to throw more Instamorph into the water, let it melt down. You're going to try and flatten it into kind of a disc. Like this. You're going to want to let it cool just a little. You're going to make 4 holes in it. 1 on each side.
God damn it, boys!
1 at the top. And 1 in the middle.
He's right there! Oh my fucking god!
And let that cool a little longer. And you're going to push the holes all the way through. And if this happens, you can just cut it away with your X-Acto knife. So don't worry about that. So after you've done that, you're just going to want to get it back to somewhat flat shape. And you're going to take your scissors and you're just going to trim down the edges as much as possible. Like that. Now you're going to take your X-Acto knife. I'm just gonna slice these guys off. And when I was doing this the first time, it actually went all the way through every time. So I only had to cut 1 or 2 of these off. So what you do after you cut all those off is you're going to want to take the X-Acto and you're just going to want to carve out these holes a little more so that you widen it up just a little. That way it'll fit over the little joint edges on your stir straws that you melted together. Now you're going to want to grab your Smooth On Super Seal and just spray it and cover the inside, and you're going to want to apply 2 coats of that. And the last thing we're going to need is silicone. I'm using Smooth On EcoFlex. So you got your part A, your part B, and I also have a wound kit which came with several pigments, and so I'm going to be using blood and flesh. And I'll be using this cocktail straw that I melted the end down on to scoop the pigment out. I have this container to combine the mixtures in. I measured the volume of the mold by pouring water in it and pouring it out. It came out to about 6 ounces. I also have 2 smaller Tupperware containers that part A and part B are going to go into. And I'm going to be mixing my pigment into part A before I combine the mixtures. So now you're just going to want to mix up both parts pretty evenly and make sure you scrape the sides and bottom to get it to a nice even consistency. So now I've got my part A and my part B. I've got my part A and my part B poured out into equal portions, and now I'm going to be putting some pigment into A. Okay, so I've heard that the pigment for silicone is really pigmented, and so I'm just going to add like a touch of each. Because I do want this to remain all over my counter. Okay. Try and keep it somewhat translucent. I'm going to mix that in and see how that goes. Alright, so I've gotten that to a color that I like, so I'm just going to stir these, mix them, and try pouring it. Alright, well, it's poured, and now I guess we just wait to see if it cures. Alright, so I just got it out of the mold, which I had to break apart with a hammer, but that's fine, because it came out great. The only issue is that the tip had a little bit of curing inhibition, but I can just go back over that when I paint it, so that's no big deal. So the next issue is just cleaning it up and trying to get these straws out. Alright, so just a quick update. I do have a tip in there now, and I also have patched up some of the thin areas or areas with larger holes. And so the last thing I gotta do for this is just paint it, and then we're all done. Alright, so I just got it finished up with its final coat of silicone, and I just pigmented it darker, and I used this toothbrush and I just tapped it on like this to give it the nice texture there. So yeah, this is what your final product's gonna look like.